Hi, I'm here to share with you something that happened to me in my 20s. I'll just tell you the story of it. It was the weekend of Easter, and I was in London, and I was crossing the road to get to the bank, and the traffic island in the middle of the road would let you on one side, and you had to wait to cross the second half of the road. And if anyone knows where it is, it's in Whitechapel High Street. Um, so I was waiting to get across the road to the bank, and I was waiting on the traffic island, and more people kept coming on the traffic island because it was a Easter weekend, and I suppose everybody wanted money out of the bank in them days. So I ended up in the road, and as I sort of like ended up in the road, I seen all this traffic coming towards me, and I'd done whatever you do, fight or flight, so it was flight, and I started running across the road, and I ran straight into the path of a National Express coach. Now, this coach hit me at about 40 miles an hour. Now, I think the reason I survived is because I was running. I think both feet were off the ground. So I hit the coach and I was in midair. And as it hit me, it just pushed me along until the driver hit his brakes. And then I just continued flying. And I ended up over 100 metres away from where the coach was. Um, and I remember it vividly. I remember being squashed by it. I remember flying up through the air, and then as I landed, I just kept bouncing and bouncing and bouncing, and I never thought I was going to stop bouncing. It was one of them, and luckily for me, I had motorcycle clothing on, so I didn't get any road rash or anything like that. And then as I landed, I was winded. Obviously, all the air got pushed out of my lungs, and I couldn't breathe. And one of the first people that came over to sort of like see if I was okay was a pregnant woman, and she asked me one question. She said, "Can you feel the pain?" And I said, "Yes." And she goes, "Well, you're not dying then, are you?" And it sort of like took the panic out of me. Then the ambulances came. They took me into the hospital, and they were all rushing because it was a major road traffic accident. When I got there, they put all these things on me and then started taking them off immediately. And I was looking around and I thought, fuck, am I dead? And I was looking around, and I asked one of the nurses, I goes, am I dead? She went, no. She goes, you're going to be okay. And they contacted my dad, and I went to his house and recovered for a few weeks. And I was bruised down one side of my body, sort of like really black and blue down one side of my body. And it took me probably a couple of weeks before I could walk, and then I wasn't walking too well. Um, it turned out that I fractured my skull and smashed my right shoulder up, and was in a pretty bad way. Um, then I went home, and I lived alone at the time. And for the first few weeks, I had this notion that I was indestructible, and it just felt as if I was, I thought nothing could destroy me, nothing could kill me. And then there was one day in particular, where I just started walking aimlessly around, had nowhere to go really. I was a bit confused and dazed and that, and I just felt so alone, so detached from reality. Um, I decided to phone the Samaritans to ask for help, and then hung up on them because I didn't think they would do any good. And I walked to the police station. I just sat outside, and I ended up having this emotional outburst where I started crying for about 20 minutes, and it released. And as it released, I felt a bit better afterwards, actually. And it was only years later that through hypnosis that I actually realised what had happened. And I made that change, and I realised that having that emotional release was getting rid of the trauma. Now, that's why in hypnosis we go through processes to alleviate that, so that you can release that trauma, that energy, without having any distress. And it really does work. Because later on I went for a hypnosis process, and little residues of this came up, and it went away. Now, it relieved my life. Now, I don't know what traumas you've had in your life, mishaps or whatever, but I do know this. I know that keeping it all bottled up is not a good way for your health. And on that note, that's one of the reasons I do what I do.